Mercy's Price. The UNEC Samaritan glided through the void, its hull gleaming white against the backdrop of stars. Captain Elena Reyes stood on the bridge, watching as the blue-green planet Araxis VI grew larger on the main view screen. The planet's northern hemisphere was scarred with dark patches, the aftermath of the recent meteorite strikes that had devastated the Macquarie settlements. "Status report," Rice said, tucking a strand of her silver-streaked black hair behind her ear. Lieutenant Commander Patel looked up from his console. "We're approaching the outer orbital markers, Captain. Atmospheric sensors confirm extensive damage to the northern continent. Life signs are scattered but numerous. Any response to our hails?" "Yes, Captain. The Macquarie governor is standing by." Reyes nodded. "Put them through." The screen flickered, revealing the tall, slender form of Governor Lichol, her iridescent scales dulled with stress and her 4 eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of extreme distress among the Macquarie. "Captain Reyes," the governor's translator rendered her clicking speech into English. "Your arrival brings great relief. The meteorite strikes have destroyed most of our medical facilities. The survivors—" She paused, her breathing labored. "Many require immediate care beyond our capabilities." "That's why we're here, Governor," Reyes replied. "The Samaritan carries enough medical supplies and personnel to treat up to 20,000 critical patients. We'll begin landing operations as soon as we establish a safe corridor. The Macquarie will not forget Earth's generosity in our darkest hour," Lichol said, bowing her head in the formal gesture of her people. Reyes returned the gesture. "Humanity remembers when your people provided sanctuary to our colony ships during the Proxima incident. We help our friends." As the transmission ended, Reyes turned to her first officer. "Commander Chen, prepare landing operations. I want the first medical teams on the surface within the hour." "Yes, Captain." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. The UNEC Samaritan was Earth's newest and largest medical vessel, a floating hospital designed specifically for interstellar disaster relief. With 12 fully equipped surgical bays, gene therapy labs, and thousands of autodocs, it represented humanity's commitment to peaceful engagement with other species. Reyes walked to the tactical station, where Lieutenant Ortiz was monitoring local space. "Anything I should know about?" Ortiz shook her head. "All clear, Captain. The Macquarie have no hostile neighbors, and this system is well within the treaty zone. Let's keep our eyes open anyway. Not everyone respects neutral medical vessels." "Understood, Captain." 3 hours later, Reyes stood in the primary launch bay, watching as the last of the initial response teams boarded their shuttles. Dr. Marcus Wong, the ship's chief medical officer, approached her with a medical kit slung over his shoulder. "You're going down with the first wave?" Reyes asked, surprised. Wong nodded, his weathered face serious. "The Macquarie physiology is tricky. I've treated them before, during my rotation on Sirius Station. They'll need experienced hands." "Keep in touch, Doctor. I want hourly reports." "You'll have them," Wong promised, then turned to board his shuttle. Reyes watched as the bay doors opened, revealing the curve of Araxis VI below. The first shuttle launched, followed by 11 more in quick succession. She felt the familiar mixture of pride and anxiety that accompanied every mission. Pride in her crew's dedication, anxiety for their safety. Back on the bridge, Reyes monitored the shuttle's descent. Everything proceeded according to plan until Lieutenant Ortiz called out sharply, "Captain, multiple vessels just dropped out of FTL at the system edge. Identification." "Working on it," Ortiz replied, fingers flying across her console. "They're not broadcasting ID signals." Commander Chen moved to the tactical station. "Configuration matches Brack's designs, Captain." Reyes felt her blood run cold. The Vraks were a militant species from the Outer Rim, known for territorial aggression and raiding. What were they doing this far into civilized space? "Hail them," she ordered. "All frequencies. Make it clear we're a medical vessel on a humanitarian mission." Before communications could comply, Ortiz called out again. "They're accelerating toward us, Captain. Weapons signatures detected. Red alert. Recall all shuttles." Rise commanded, even as she knew it was likely too late. The Samaritan had no weapons, only basic deflector shields meant to protect against space debris. It was never designed for combat. "They're not responding to hails," reported Lieutenant Park from communications. The first impact rocked the ship, throwing Rise against her command chair. Warning klaxons blared throughout the vessel. "Direct hit to our port side," Chen reported. "Shield generators are offline. Hull breach on decks 5 through 7. Emergency force fields activated," another officer called out. Rise pulled herself up. "Evasive maneuvers. Get us behind the moon if possible. And keep broadcasting our status." "Captain, the shuttles," Ortiz began. "I know," Rise cut her off. There was no time for grief. "Get me shipwide." When the channel opened, Rise spoke clearly despite the chaos around her. "All hands, this is the captain. We are under attack by unidentified vessels. All medical personnel proceed to emergency stations. Prepare for casualties and possible evacuation." A second impact, more violent than the first, sent sparks cascading from the overhead systems. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by the dim red glow of emergency lighting. "Engineering reports critical damage to the main reactor," Chen said, his voice steady despite the situation. "We have maybe 10 minutes before containment fails." Rise made the hardest decision of her career. Abandon ship, all hands to escape pods. Send out a distress call on all frequencies. As the bridge crew moved to comply, another blast tore through the ship's midsection. Rise was thrown against a bulkhead, pain lancing through her shoulder. Through the haze of emergency lights and smoke, she saw Chen helping injured crew members toward the escape pods. "Go," she shouted at him. "I'll make sure the distress beacon is launched." Chen hesitated, then nodded, helping a bleeding Ortiz through the door. Rise dragged herself to the emergency communications panel and activated the distress beacon. As she worked, the view screen showed 5 Vrax vessels surrounding the Samaritan, methodically firing on the unarmed medical ship. "Message recorded," the computer announced. "Beacon ready for launch." "Launch beacon," Rise ordered, then began to make her way toward the escape pods. She never made it. A final, massive explosion tore through the bridge, and darkness claimed her. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Cascade Mountains, General Hiroshi Tanaka stood before the assembled Joint Chiefs and the Secretary of Defense. His face was grim as he activated the holographic projector. 48 hours ago, we received this distress signal," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. The hologram showed the bridge of the Samaritan, smoke-filled and bathed in red emergency lighting. Captain Rice's face appeared, bloody but determined. "This is Captain Alina Reyes of the UNEC Samaritan. We are under unprovoked attack by vessels identified as Vrax in origin. We have made it clear that we are an unarmed medical vessel on a humanitarian mission to Araxis VI. They have ignored all hails and continued to fire upon us. Multiple casualties reported. We are abandoning ship to any allied vessels. The Makari people on Araxis VI still need assistance. Their situation is desperate." The transmission ended with a final explosion, then static. The room remained silent for several long moments. "Were there any survivors?" asked Admiral Winters, her voice barely above a whisper. "One," Tanaka replied. "A medical technician named David Chen. He was in an escape pod that was picked up by a Makari rescue vessel." He advanced the hologram to show a young man with severe burns covering half his face. Before losing consciousness, Chen confirmed that the Vrax vessels deliberately targeted the medical shuttles after destroying the Samaritan. The Secretary of Defense, a tall woman with close-cropped gray hair, leaned forward. "What about the Makari?" "The meteorite strikes were real," Tanaka said. "But our intelligence suggests they were not natural events. Analysis of Chen's pod data indicates the Makiers had propulsion signatures. They were deliberately redirected to hit Makari settlements. A pretext, said Air Force General Rodriguez. Create a humanitarian crisis, wait for response, then attack the responders. But why? Asked Admiral Winters. The Vraks have no quarrel with Earth or the Makari. Tanaka changed the display to show a star chart. We believe they're testing our response. The Vraks have been expanding aggressively for the past decade. They've conquered 3 systems along the rim, but have avoided direct confrontation with major powers. This may be their way of gauging our military readiness. They attacked an unarmed medical ship, the secretary said, her voice cold with fury. They'll find out exactly how ready we are. She turned to face the assembled officers. Recommendations. Admiral Winters spoke first. The 4th Fleet is positioned near the Arcturus relay. They could reach Araxis VI in 72 hours. Too slow, Rodriguez countered. And too conventional. The Vraks need to understand the gravity of their mistake. The secretary nodded. General Tanaka, it's time to activate Prometheus. A hush fell over the room. Project Prometheus was Earth's most closely guarded military secret, a fleet of advanced warships hidden in various locations throughout Earth-controlled space, designed specifically for rapid response to existential threats. Madam Secretary, Tanaka said carefully, Prometheus has never been deployed in actual combat. The technological advantage it represents will be revealed sooner or later, she interrupted. I'd rather it be on our terms, sending a clear message to anyone who might consider attacking our humanitarian missions in the future. She looked around the table. The Vraks didn't just attack a ship. They attacked everything we stand for. Our commitment to peace, our dedication to helping others, our humanity itself. She stood, her decision made. Activate Prometheus. Full deployment. I'll inform the President. As the meeting dispersed, Tanaka remained behind, studying the final image of the Samaritan before it was destroyed. 342 medical personnel and crew gone. Not soldiers who had accepted the risks of combat, but doctors, nurses, and engineers whose only mission was to save lives. He thought of his own daughter, a surgeon aboard the UNEC Nightingale, currently on mission near the Pleiades cluster. How easily it could have been her. Tanaka's communicator chirped. General, Prometheus Command acknowledges activation orders. All vessels report ready status. Understood, Tanaka replied. Transmit coordinates for Araxis VI system. Primary target, Vraks attack fleet. Secondary targets, all Vraks military installations within striking distance. He paused, then added, Operation designation, Mercy's Price. As he made his way to the Prometheus Command Center, Tanaka found himself remembering an old Earth saying, those who live by the sword will die by the sword. The Vraks had chosen violence against healers. Now they would face the full might of a humanity they had gravely underestimated. The Prometheus fleet was about to teach them the costliest lesson of their existence. Retribution's edge. The Vraks command vessel Inevitable Conquest dominated the orbit of Araxis VI, flanked by 4 battle cruisers. On its bridge, Fleet Commander Grix surveyed the wreckage of the human medical ship with satisfaction. His scaled skin glistened under the command deck's lights as he turned to his second-in-command. The humans are weak, Grix said, his translator rendering his guttural language into standard galactic common. They send healers instead of warriors. This sector will fall easily. Sub-Commander Vex bobbed her head in the Vrak's gesture of agreement, but her eyes showed concern. The humans have a reputation for unpredictable responses to aggression, Commander. Their history is irrelevant, Grix interrupted. We've studied their fleet deployments. Their nearest military vessels are days away. By then, we'll have secured the Makari's Aetherium reserves and established orbital supremacy. And the Makari survivors. Grix made a dismissive gesture with his clawed hand. They'll be processed according to protocol. The strong will serve, the weak are irrelevant. A junior officer approached, bowing low. Commander, our sensors detect unusual energy readings near the system's edge. Specification, Grix demanded. Unknown, Commander. The signature doesn't match any known drive system. Grix hissed in annoyance. Magnify the sector. The main view screen shifted to show empty space at the system's heliobus. For a moment, nothing seemed amiss. Then space itself appeared to fold inward at multiple points, as if reality were being gently pinched. What am I seeing? Grix demanded. The science officer's voice trembled. It appears to be some form of localized space-time manipulation, Commander, but nothing in our databases. Before he could finish, the fabric of space rippled and parted. Where there had been nothing, 12 sleek vessels now hung in the void, their hulls a deep matte black that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. Unlike the utilitarian designs of known human warships, these vessels were elegant, almost predatory in their lines. Identification, Grix barked. None, Commander. They're broadcasting no signals at all. Weapons status. Sensors detect no conventional weapons arrays, the tactical officer reported, confusion evident in her tone. But there are energy signatures our systems cannot categorize. Grix felt the first stirrings of unease. Hail them. All frequencies. No response, Commander. Launch a probe. I want detailed scans. The probe never made it halfway to the mysterious fleet. A thin beam of light, barely visible against the darkness of space, lanced from the lead black ship. The probe simply ceased to exist, not exploded, not disintegrated, but erased from reality as if it had never been. Stunned silence fell over the Vrax bridge. Then the communications officer called out, Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessels. Put it through, Grix ordered, straightening to his full height. The view screen displayed a human male in a uniform unlike any Grix had seen before, black with silver trim, bearing no insignia except for a small emblem resembling a stylized flame. This is Admiral James Way of Earth's Prometheus fleet, the human said without preamble. You have committed an act of war against humanity by deliberately attacking an unarmed medical vessel engaged in humanitarian operations. You have 1 standard minute to surrender unconditionally. Grix snarled, his razor teeth gleaming. This is Fleet Commander Grix of the Vrax Dominion. We recognize no such crime. The human vessel intruded in our operational space. Your threats are meaningless. You are outnumbered. The human's expression didn't change. You misunderstand, Commander. This is not a negotiation. It is a courtesy. He glanced at something off-screen. Your time expires in 30 seconds. Grix turned to his tactical officer. Battle stations. Target the lead vessel and fire when ready. The Vrax battle cruisers moved into formation, their weapons ports glowing as they powered up. The inevitable conquest launched a full spread of quantum torpedoes at the lead human ship. The torpedoes never reached their target. Halfway to the Black Fleet, they simply stopped, hanging motionless in space as if time itself had frozen around them. Impossible, whispered the science officer. Admiral Way's expression remained impassive on the view screen. Your time has expired, Commander. Remember, you chose this outcome. The transmission cut off. A heartbeat later, 3 of the black ships simply vanished from their positions. Before anyone could react, they reappeared directly alongside the outermost Vrax cruisers. No weapons fired. No energy beams lashed out. Instead, a barely perceptible ripple emanated from each black ship. Where it passed, Vrax systems failed catastrophically. Weapons went dark. Shields collapsed. Life support sputtered. What's happening? Grix demanded as alerts blared across his command console. They're generating some kind of localized entropy field, the science officer said, voice shaking. It's accelerating molecular decay in our systems. On the view screen, Grix watched in horror as one of his battle cruisers began to visibly deteriorate. its hull plating oxidizing and crumbling, as if centuries of corrosion were happening in seconds. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Get us out of their range." The inevitable conquest lurched as its engines struggled against some invisible force. Grix felt the deck plates vibrating beneath his feet. "Commander," his helmsman called out, panic evident in his voice, "we're caught in some kind of gravitational trap. We cannot break free." The main view screen suddenly activated without command, showing Admiral Wei once more. This time, the human's eyes were cold with purpose. "Commander Grix," Wei said, 48 hours ago, you ordered the destruction of the UNEC Samaritan, an unarmed medical vessel. 342 medical personnel died. Your actions violated not only human law, but the galactic conventions your own government has signed." We leaned forward slightly. Humanity has maintained a facade of limited military capability for decades, restricting our visible forces to conventional technologies. That ends today. Around the inevitable conquest, the remaining Vrax vessels were being systematically disabled. Not destroyed, disabled. With surgical precision, the black ships were targeting propulsion, weapons, and communications, leaving life support untouched. "We're being boarded," the security chief shouted, as sensors detected multiple breaches throughout the ship. Grix drew his sidearm. "Repel boarders, all security teams." Before he could finish, the air on the bridge shimmered. Where there had been empty space, 7 figures now stood, humans in form-fitting black combat suits that seemed to absorb light. Their faces were covered by featureless helmets, and they carried no visible weapons. Yet Grix's security team was down in seconds, incapacitated by invisible forces that left them conscious but paralyzed. Grix fired his weapon at the nearest intruder, but the energy bolt froze midair, just as the torpedoes had. One of the humans approached Grix. A voice emerged from the helmet, artificially modulated. "Fleet Commander Grix, by authority of Earth's Unified Defense Command, you are being detained to face trial for war crimes against humanity and the Makari people." Grix snarled. "The Vrax Dominion will never accept this. We are a sovereign power. You have no authority." "Your understanding is irrelevant," the human interrupted. "Your detention is not diplomatic, it is physical." As if to emphasize the point, Grix found himself suddenly unable to move, held in place by an invisible force. On Earth, 3 days later, General Tanaka stood before the Security Council in an underground chamber beneath Geneva. The assembled representatives from Earth's unified government listened as he delivered his report. "Operation Mercy's Price has concluded successfully," Tanaka stated. "All Vrax vessels involved in the attack on the Samaritan have been neutralized. Their crews have been detained and will face trial under galactic law." "Casualties?" asked the representative from the African Union. "None on our side," Tanaka replied. 17 among the Vrax forces, all from their initial resistance. The Chinese representative leaned forward. "And the Vrax homeworld? What has been their response?" Tanaka activated a holographic display showing a distant star system. "The Vrax Central Command received our evidence package detailing Commander Grix's war crimes, along with footage of the Prometheus fleet in action. They have formally disavowed Grix's actions and withdrawn all forces from the disputed sectors." Murmurs ran through the chamber. The representative from the European Federation voiced what many were thinking. They backed down that quickly. "The Vrax are pragmatic," Tanaka explained. "The technological gap demonstrated by Prometheus changed their strategic calculus. Their intelligence services had estimated we were decades away from developing the capabilities we displayed." "And what exactly are those capabilities, General?" asked the North American representative. "The full council has never been briefed on Prometheus beyond its existence." Tanaka glanced at the Secretary General, who nodded approval. "The Prometheus fleet employs 3 key technologies previously kept classified," Tanaka began. "First, localized quantum field manipulation, allowing our ships to effectively step through space without conventional FTL drives. Second, targeted entropy modulation, which can accelerate or decelerate atomic decay within a defined area, essentially aging enemy systems while preserving life support. Third, gravity lensing that renders our vessels nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. He paused, letting the implications sink in. Most importantly, these technologies are defensive and incapacitating by nature. They allow us to neutralize threats without mass casualties. The Brazilian representative spoke up. So we showed mercy even in retribution. Precisely, Tanaka confirmed. That was a deliberate strategic choice. We demonstrated overwhelming technological superiority while maintaining our ethical principles. The message to the galaxy is clear. Humanity will defend itself and its allies decisively, but we have not abandoned our commitment to life. The Secretary General rose to address the Council. The activation of Prometheus marks a turning point for Earth's position in galactic affairs. For decades, we've maintained the appearance of limited military capability, focusing instead on diplomacy, trade, and humanitarian efforts. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the sleek black ships of the Prometheus fleet. We developed these capabilities in secret, not out of aggression, but pragmatism. History, both human and alien, teaches that perceived weakness invites aggression. The Vraks proved this principle when they attacked a vessel of mercy. "What happens now?" asked the Russian representative. "Now we rebuild the Samaritan," the Secretary General replied without hesitation. "We continue our humanitarian mission to the Makari, and we move forward with a new openness about our defensive capabilities. The facade has served its purpose." 1 month later, Admiral Wei stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus command ship Athena, watching as a new vessel took shape in the orbital construction facility above Mars. Its white hull gleamed in the sunlight, the red medical cross prominently displayed. Dr. David Chen, the lone survivor of the Samaritan, stood beside him. The burns on his face had been treated, but the scars remained. He had refused complete regeneration. "The UNEC Hippocrates," Chen said, reading the name being applied to the new medical ship's hull. "She's larger than the Samaritan." We nodded. "Improved in every way. Better medical facilities, faster engines, and," he hesitated, "and defensive capabilities," Chen finished for him. I saw the specs. Shield generators, point defense systems, emergency FTL. "We won't send another unarmed ship into danger," Wei said quietly. "Never again." Chen was silent for a moment, watching the construction drones swarming around the massive vessel. Captain Rice would have approved of the changes, but not the reason for them. "No," Wei agreed. "She believed in humanity's better nature. She died for that belief." "She died showing aliens our compassion," Chen corrected. "You showed them our strength." Both were necessary messages. We turned to look at the young medical technician. "Will you serve on the Hippocrates when she's completed? No one would question if you chose a planet-side assignment after what you experienced." Chen's expression was resolute as he touched the scars on his face. "I'll serve. We all will. The doctors, nurses, technicians who volunteered for the new mission. Because that's what humanity does. We heal, we help, we protect." He looked back at the emerging ship. The Vraks thought mercy was weakness. Now they know better. Mercy is a choice made from strength. We nodded slowly. A choice we'll continue to make. Below them, Earth turned slowly against the blackness of space, cradle of a species that had mastered the stars not through conquest, but cooperation, that had developed devastating technologies but chosen to use them with restraint, that had faced aggression with measured response, rather than blind vengeance. The Vraks had attacked a rescue convoy, expecting no significant response from what they perceived as a weak species preoccupied with helping others. Earth had launched a total retaliation that demonstrated not just their military might, but their ethical complexity. Throughout the galaxy, other species were reassessing their understanding of humanity. What had appeared to be technological limitation was revealed as technological restraint. What had seemed like vulnerability was shown to be deliberate choice. The message was received. Earth's mercy was not weakness. It was the truest expression of their strength.